Today, we're going to be talking about the future purchase order tracking and how you can use automation to streamline that entire process. To get into it or to dive a little bit further, to what we've seen, and everything on this in this presentation has come from a collaboration of all of our customers, what we're hearing from our partners in the industry. So while we view it as a standard, it might not perfectly match what you are currently doing today. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I will answer as soon as I can, or we'll answer during the Stump the Chump. But what we've seen is today, the standard process for PO management is a buyer will create a purchase order inside of Epicor. They'll either have Epicor automatically send that out to their supplier, or they'll download out that PO, email it to the suppliers, and then they're manually tracking all updates and statuses back inside of Epicor or using spreadsheets. Suppliers will respond inconsistently. And if they send you an acknowledgement or a sales confirmation, that'll be sent via email or with the PDF attached. Often, buyers don't have the time or the bandwidth to request updates throughout the PO process. And they are often stuck with the original promise dates and the acknowledgement information as the only source of truth for that entire PO. When that PDF or acknowledgement comes back, the buyer has to then do almost like a swivel chair and confirm all the details are the same from what the supplier sent back and the details inside of Epicor, and then update that information back inside of Epicor so that way everything is consistent. The ERP kept up by that manual data entry, which increases risk of errors and delays. And often for shipping or freight information, buyers are stuck having to log into several different freight forwarder dashboards to retrieve estimated times of arrivals. And that's only if they can get that ASNs and shipment tracking from their suppliers in the first place. Overall, this workflow is very fragmented, and it's heavily relying on manual processes and multiple communication channels. It looks something very similar. Sorry, I jumped to a slide. So what that does is it creates an overwhelming inbox and this huge space of manual data entry, which makes a buyer almost more than a full-time job. You are swamped to the point where you don't have time to follow up with every single supplier, every single PO, and you're just hoping on that, or you're relying on that relationship to kind of drive the communication forward, knowing that there's too many POs per buyers. So when you look at that overwhelming inbox, the way that that occurs, or the reason why that it occurs, is in a perfect world, one PO, one buyer. Each PO has an acknowledgement. You're requesting status updates throughout that shipment. You're collecting that shipment tracking information like ASNs, BOLs, anything else, and then all the information gets put back into your ERP automatically. Because there are more POs than buyers, often, and there's more emails and multiple steps per PO, often what that turns into is this web of information flowing back and forth between the buyers and suppliers, and it creates a lot of nuance. What that does is it creates a disconnected supplier communication, and can allows teams to struggle with fragmented updates coming from emails, phones, and spreadsheets, and it creates delays and errors in purchase order tracking. That delay can turn into late deliveries and misproduction. It also creates a gap of information inside your ERP, or manual data entry into your ERP. So statuses updates manually, and it increases the risk of mistakes and consuming hours that could be spent on strategic work, like confirming lead costs, and there's no unit drifts inside your products, working with suppliers to create better pricing, to create better on-time report, finding better suppliers in markets where you need to replace those suppliers that just aren't communicative. You just don't have the time to be able to handle all that because you're chasing and manually doing all this data entry. And no real-time visibility. So without instant updates, supply chain teams operate reactively, unaware of delays or issues until they escalate, and it compromises on-time delivery, and it compromises your ability to hit your production goals. All that in turn creates operational frustration. One of our quotes from our customers is, "We spend hours each week just finding out where the orders are, That was something we were helping them fix, is that now they can go into one place and they can see exactly this is where every single order is, and this is the status of it, and this is what the last communication that was sent. That traditional data flow often creates this world where your company and your organization operates information that is based off of your ERP, which is Epicor. The only way information can get back into Epicor is through your buyers. All the information from your suppliers and your shipments have to go through your buying team before they can get back into Epicor. So your buyers become this manual entry and not a strategic use case. So why would you want to automate purchase order management other than helping your buying team save time, reduce stress, give them time to be able to work on more strategic tasks? The goal is you want a faster acknowledgement, you want real-time tracking, you want to reduce your errors, and you want to start to save money across the board. So for faster acknowledgement, automation speeds up the process by approval process by routing purchase orders instantly to the right stakeholders within built-in escalation notification rules. What this means is a couple of different things. First off, if you can allow your suppliers to acknowledge with a smart digital PO or acknowledge in real time, if there's no changes required, it gets pushed back into Epicor automatically. What that does is it removes the entire process of having to check a PDF just to say this information is exactly the same information that we sent over, and it's now been acknowledged and everything's on time. Also, if there are delays or things change, notifying the right person internally of that delay or of that change, allowing them to review it and either accept those changes or reject and start a conversation with the supplier, means now, instead of focusing on all 100% of your POs, you can focus on the 10% that have exceptions or the need handhelding. For real-time tracking, you want to gain immediate visibility into your purchase order statuses, shipments, and payments, enabling proactive management and timely responses to delays. Basically, the faster you know, the faster you can react, and the faster you can react or you can predict, the ability to reduce delays down the field becomes easier. So if you don't have the information in real time, you're working off of retroactive information, which ultimately pushes or slows down growth. Also, with real-time tracking, you start to be able to build out really customized QBRs for your suppliers, and you can start to communicate to your supplying team or your suppliers where success is and how they look like benchmarked comparatively to the market. All that also produces fewer errors. So automated validation of standardized workflows, reduce manual data entry mistakes, ensuring higher accuracy and compliance. And then lastly is cost savings. By reducing processing time and minimizing errors, organizations can cut purchase orders handling costs by up to 20%. What does that kind of look like? Well, the very first thing is you want a tool or a process that directly interacts with your ERP. You need to be able to read and write PO level data, and you need to be able to ensure that you have real-time updates and accuracy flowing back into your ERP, because Epicor is the core of how your organization operates and what they view as the source of truth. So it doesn't make sense for you to automate something and then push it into a different place. You want to make sure all that information gets put back into Epicor. For supplier outreach, you want to provide updated PO statuses, lead time updates, and ASNs through automated outreach, and you want to put it in a process that your suppliers are used to. If you don't meet them where they are, supplier adoption is not going to happen. And then for automated reporting, as a head of operations, I love reports. I build reports all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do, but it's not everybody's favorite thing to do. Now, everybody loves to get into the weeds looking at the numbers to try to validate that everything is correct. They just want to be able to see in a time series, are we going up or down and why? And that's what you can start to get to when you have this automation built into it, because your information is accurate and it's living in a process that automatically updates itself. So there's no need to rerun a report. All you have to do is go to a web page and you can see that information live.
Got a question from Belinda. Is there a way to get notifications now for POs that are late?
Absolutely. There's a couple things that you can, from Leverage's perspective, the way that we do that is we have just a general workflow setup that whenever a PO is past its estimated shipment date and they haven't provided you that information, you get a notification saying this supplier hasn't shipped or potentially hasn't shipped this product. And you get notified before the expected shipment date. And then if Epicor isn't updated to delivered or complete before or after that delivery date is expected, then you'll get notified of that. Additionally, because we pull in, when we collect the ASN and tracking information from a supplier, when we pull in the freight forwarding updates, you actually get like real-time notifications, like for example, from FedEx. Everybody knows when you go to Amazon or you go to FedEx, you can see this package is being processed. This package has been picked up by the carrier. This package is at the destination. You get those notification updates and the date updates back into Epicor automatically as well. So you get a what's open, what's late, and then you can also get a what's the active shipment status of everything. So for buyers, you want to make sure that there's a way for buyers to not have to revolutionize their entire workflow. And you want to make sure it's extremely simple for them to be able to jump into a platform, review the changes, review any reporting that they need, and then jump back into Epicor. The goal should always be in Epicor. So what does that look like? From a more high-level overview, two-way sync into Epicor. You need to be able to read and write information from there. You want to automate supplier follow-ups. You want no behavior changes from your suppliers. And you want supplier data analytics to live in a way that's readable and digestible by the entire team. So how do you build adoption? Changing things and automating things is great, but it doesn't work if your suppliers don't use it. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to meet suppliers where they are. What we have seen is portals are really great when you have the purchasing power with the supplier to be able to drive them to that portal. And EDI is really great when you have the purchasing power to be able to drive and financially promote the supplier to use that EDI process. But in the outcomes where you don't have, or the instances where you don't have that, often adoption rates are really low. We have seen a 93% adoption rate from all of our suppliers by meeting them where they are, which is their inbox. Almost every supplier today uses an inbox to communicate with you or an email to communicate with you. So if you can match that, that's how you can drive adoption, and you can push suppliers to actually want to use the process and then start to adopt it natively. So you want to make sure that suppliers continuously use their preferred communication methods like email or their own ERP or portals. You want to intelligently translate supplier data and integrate it back into the Epicor system without disruption. What this means, if they send you back an HTML document, you should be able to read that document automatically and push information back. If there's a change or if something doesn't match, put it into a needs review workflow. Don't make a human interact with the document just to read information and confirm that it's correct. You want to minimize onboarding friction and enable faster adoption and immediate automation benefits. And you want to maintain a strong supplier relationship by avoiding forced technological changes. Very simple. Everybody loves it when GoToMeeting or Apple or Microsoft just pushes a UI change or a change onto their platform. It creates a lot of disruptions. You want to avoid that as much as possible. And all that goes, ensuring uninterrupted collaboration and operational continuity across the supply chain. Keep the conversations flowing between you and your suppliers, but automate the processes of collecting information and pushing it back into the ERP. So when you do that, you can start to have a little bit more give or sway. We were joking about using AI for photos earlier, but you can also use AI to start to analyze scorecards. So you can start to review historical data to generate detailed supplier scorecards, help procurement teams evaluate performance on on-time deliveries, on-time in full, quality, and compliance consistency. You can also use it to create predictive analytics. Organizations can forecast demand more accurately, optimize inventory, and reduce procurement costs by up to 20%. And then also AI identifies potential supplier delays, cost fluctuations, and shortages early, enabling proactive risk management and smarter purchasing decisions. So outside of meeting your suppliers where they are and using what we call as a smart digital PO, the secondary aspect of it is you need to be able to digitize document management. That's the other part of all this, is a lot of documents, a lot of PDFs, a lot of information is sent back and forth. You need to create a centralized digital record. So you need to create a secure, searchable digital repository for all purchase order documents. You want to make sure it's easy to access and reduce the risk of lost or misplaced files during audits or reviews. For this specifically, and because it's usually something that gets asked a lot of, if any attachments are created inside of Epicor, they'll be sent out via leverage and then stored inside that PO inside of leverage as well. So your suppliers can still receive every single document that you normally would send them. And then when they provide you back sales confirmations or any specs or any documents, it also can push it back into Epicor. So they're stored inside of leverage underneath that individual PO line, but they're also then stored inside of Epicor for where your team can easily find them. With centralizing information, you also want to use dashboards to monitor spending by vendor, department, and category in real time. And you want to provide actionable insights to help optimize budgets and supplier negotiations. And then lastly, we all have seen a supplier push a change for pricing or push a change for total number of units being delivered. And that just doesn't get communicated back into when that invoice comes. And it creates this weird issue of where three-way matching is necessary. If you automatically update all the information and you create this trend line or activity timeline of everything that has occurred and when it was approved both by the supplier and by the buyer, you now have the ability to automate three-way matching because the invoice should match exactly what's inside of Epicor. If it doesn't match, that information wasn't communicated by the supplier during the PO process. So it can easily or seamlessly integrate with your ERP and finance system to reduce manual data entry and errors and decrease the number of POs that need to be three-way matched in the first place. So once again, using AI, you can use it to analyze historical data and machine learning to forecast delays, inventory needs, and cost fluctuations, enabling proactive decision-making and risk mitigation. Some of the cool things that we've seen is people using it to work on top of the other Epicor modules, such as an MRP, to be able to actually analyze what is low and what should we be buying, and then be able to have an agent be able to purchase that automatically. This one isn't us specifically, but AI also can integrate into IoT sensors and GPS tracking to provide real-time data updates on shipment locations and conditions in transit. One of my favorite people to talk about here is Tive. If you have time sensitive or you have temperature controlled shipments, they're really great at being able to keep that information. If that's communicated back to the supplier or to the freight forwarder, that information can also get pulled in from leverage into your ERP. And then automated AI-driven scorecards evaluate supplier reliability, delivery times, and compliance, which helps reduce procurement costs and improve order accuracy. And then lastly, AI platforms can analyze collected data to highlight trends, flag risk, and recommendation optimization strategies, all while enhancing overall procurement efficiencies.
From Troy, can you generate an AP invoice in Epicor?
So we would not generate the AP invoice in Epicor. We would push the status to completed. And then from that aspect of it, you would need Epicor, or you would need to have another tool inside Epicor generate that invoice. We would handle it from POs created to POs completed, but not necessarily the invoicing to the supplier. So when you start to automate your purchasing, there are a set number of outcomes that we've seen not only from our customers, but also speaking with other companies that are relatively new to leverage. The very first thing is your buyers no longer become the stopgap of information going into your ERP. Now, your buyers work on top of leverage or automation to be able to automatically report what's going on. Spend time managing with exceptions. So they're, instead of spending that 100% of time on, or a time on 100% of POs, they're managing the 10% that have exceptions. They're able to review what suppliers are above the curve and below the curve, and actually have meaningful conversations with people, because they're not in their email just trying to dig themselves out of the day because they have 100 POs and they need an update for every single one, and suppliers aren't responding. And what that does is you get visibility into your entire PO lifecycle. So from a ERP integration perspective or automation perspective, it keeps your ERP up to date automatically and accurate via automation. Every single status gets pushed back into Epicor. Epicor is always up to date in terms of everything that's happening. You live inside of Epicor and you can trust that information now. Also, if suppliers push a rechange on a PO, let's say that they push the unit cost up from $1 to $1.50, You can then also update your master item records to also showcase that price change. So the next time you go and cut that PO, you're not also then creating the same process. You now have that new price of $1.50 as a baseline, which allows your team to keep your master item list up to date at all times. This can also effortlessly manage change requests and automate follow-up messages to ensure smooth operations. You have suppliers acknowledging POs directly within their email, which automatically identifies exceptions and management change requests with minimal manual intervention. Like I said, we have a 93% of supplier adoption rate just by meeting suppliers where they are. You can also automate this further by, if they use PDFs and they send you a PDF back, well, the process is then the PDF gets reviewed, AI parses it to see if the information is correct, goes through a 10-step check to confirm everything is right, and then pushes back into your ERP if everything matches automatically.
From Greg, I assume this requires a period sync of data from and to Epicor. It would not be live in real time, correct?
So integration depends on how you want your information to flow, or how your IT team feels comfortable with that information to flow. From an Epicor perspective, we've integrated with them multiple times. It's one of our more lively ERPs that we work with. It can be from a 5-minute API call all the way to we want to push it daily. It depends on the level of information and level of sync you and your team are comfortable with. With that as well, I've talked a lot about like the perfect situation before I continue forward of everything is correct, your suppliers don't change anything. In the instances that your suppliers do change things, you want to create a systematic view where we call it was like a needs review or needs or exception management process. It's just a list of every single PO line that the supplier has changed with the PO information all there. So you can quickly see, and everything that's changed is in red. So you can quickly see on PO 123, they changed line 4 from the unit cost of $1 to $1.50. Do you accept or deny this information? So now instead of trying to track down where all those changes live, you just have a itemized list that you can go through and you can review it. And you can easily sync everything. You can see all the documents, you can see everything that lives there. And you can, if you accept it, it just automatically pushes back into your ERP automatically as well for you. So you want to create these faster processes for your team when they do have to manually intervene as well. With that as well, you want to make sure your supplier updates and quantities are via email because that's where they live. Once again, I want to make sure you harp on that information. You want to be where your suppliers are. You want to be able to see order delays and problems immediately, and you want to proactively reach out to for shipment information, link ASN to shipment data to individual PO lines. This allows your suppliers to split POs based around shipment needs, or if you need to release certain lines faster than others. If you link everything back to a PO line, you have that line item level of detail pushing back into your ERP automatically. It gives you the highest level of security that everything is going to arrive on time as fast as possible. And then from a supplier analyst and KPIs perspective, you want to scorecards. You want to keep items and supplier master list current. You want to maintain 24/7 visibility into KPIs like on time and full, delays, and your scorecards. That way, your entire team knows this is what we're expecting. These are the suppliers that are above average. These are the suppliers that we're working with, and you have a set process into managing that. And your QBRs become more data driven and less, do we feel the supplier is good, yes or no? So from, this one's a little bit more leverage focused, I apologize. But from a entire team perspective, you want it to be low effort for your IT, pre-built plugins directly into Epicor. It's SaaS, we run it, you'll use it. It lives in a dashboard or a platform for your team to log into. Suppliers do not need to log in. If the supplier requests a portal or they want access into the platform for their PO specifically, that's easily can be assigned to them. But for the most part, most suppliers don't want to log in. They don't have to deal with any of that. So we want to meet them where they are. From buyers, we're not looking to replace them, but extend their abilities to actually work. Stay in existing systems and create and check on POs, which is Epicor. And then you want to manage by that exception. And from suppliers, once again, no new systems. And you want to be able to parse information so people aren't reading documents. When you match and when you create all that process, what the outcomes are is what we've seen is about a 50% reduction in manual work. This enables teams to scale operations, create more efficiencies, and improve team retention. because the amount of work and the amount of stress starts to go down. From an operational revenue gains, we've seen an increasing time-sensitive visibility into your ERP, decreases costly entry error, reduces safety stock, and our customers have seen an increase of revenue turns by about a quarter turn. From a revenue protection perspective, we want to be able to protect revenue and capture missed revenue opportunities by improving your accuracy for RFQs and for project-based work, and create more responsiveness in your business processes. And then from a supplier response and analytics, improving supplier response consistency and compliance while gaining increased bargaining power and stronger analytics with your suppliers.
Got a question from Greg. Can you compare this product to DocStar or ECM?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with DocStar, so I don't necessarily want to compare it directly. I'm going to assume, based around their name, that they parse information off of documents. Correct me if I'm wrong there. That's great, and that is something very similar to what we do in that aspect. The difference, I would say, is from leverage. Our goal is not to build fragmented toolings. Our goal is to be able to handle the entire process from when the PO is created within inside Epicor to when it's delivered and the shipment date is actually confirmed delivered, or the shipment is actually confirmed delivered. So doc parsing is built into and a huge component of what we do, because we have found that that's how suppliers, a large majority of suppliers, like to communicate with buying teams. So we want to make sure we can handle that process effectively. Similar to our ability to interact with email and communicate with email. We have found that the majority, if not 80-90% of suppliers, interact via email. So because of that, we need to make sure that component and we are flawless in that execution, so that way all the information can seamlessly sync back and forth without your supplier having to change what they're currently doing today. Because once you ask them to adopt something new, that's when they're going to stop using the technology, and that's where you're going to stop getting the benefits. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think DocStar is mostly document management, although it will handle some workflows, but I think yours is a little more powerful in there.
Got you.
From Darla, does a price change on a PO force a change to supplier price list in Epicor?
That is a really great question, and that is completely dependent on how your team wants to set it up. Some of our customers just say, whenever we have pricing built in with our suppliers, whenever they request a new change for pricing, automatically accept it and push it back into that list, so everything just stays up to date. Some of our customers say never touch the master item list. We want to make sure that we'll download out the pricing afterwards and we'll update it by ourselves every single time. And some of them say, give us a checkbox where we can review it, and we determine that while we're reviewing in the needs exception, while we're accepting that PO line and that pricing change, we can check a box that also then pushes the information back in. So you got options. We can either do it all the time. We can either give you a checkbox so you can do it whenever you want to, or you can just disable that option entirely.
And next from Mike, for subcontract POs that might be cut months in advance, is there any functionality to capture actual shipment dates and quantities to the PO releases?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a process based around the actual release date or the shipment date that you're expecting. And because everything's tracked individually via PO lines, you can send one PO with 10 different PO lines to a supplier. Each of those PO lines have a different release date and a different expected shipment date. And the PO line for acknowledgement and approval won't be sent to the supplier until it's released. You can send them a workflow. I take that back. Apologies. You can send them an email letting them know this is everything we're sending you over, and allow them to approve those release dates and acknowledge everything works. And then when it is released, we'll send them an update. This PO line XYZ has been released. Please reconfirm all the information during that time, they're required to give you an updated promise date and shipment date. If that promise date and shipment date changes based around your original one, it goes into a needs review workflow for you to review. If it doesn't, it goes back into the system as this PO has been released. It's now been acknowledged, and that's all timestamped. And then let's say you expect them to ship it on the 20th. On the 18th or the 19th, we can set up a workflow that says confirm ASN and collect and confirm ASN and shipment tracking. So now when they ship it on the 20th, you have all the correct ASN and tracking information for that PO line individually. And each individual of those PO lines, if there's 10 originally, can be released and processed at a different time.
And we're getting down here. From Dennis, where do documents such as emails and attachments actually live, or is the goal to eliminate these by getting that info directly back into Epicor?
Yeah, the goal is not to eliminate any information that you necessarily need. We have two main thoughts on document storage. We can store it on our database, which is AWS. We can store it inside of our database, and you can always access it inside of Leverage by clicking into that PO. And that's free of charge. You can have as many documents per PO as necessary. They just live inside of Leverage. You can also, if you have a dedicated spot inside of Epicor where you have documents live, or you have a dedicated like Google Drive or anywhere else where documents live, and you have a systematic process of adding those to that, we can rebuild that process inside of Leverage to also push those documents there. So if you have a space inside of Epicor where you have attachments and you want those attachments to still live inside Epicor, we can map it back into that. We just need to be able to read and write access into that table. If you have a Google Drive or a Teams, a OneNote or OneDrive where information also stores, or any other server where information stores where you want to push it to, during integration or implementation, we mapped out that process, and we understand, all right, this is the naming convention you typically use, this is the folder convention you typically use, and we can either create or push that information to those documents to that folder.
From Edward, does this product integrate to Epicor on-premise?
Yes, that one was easy. I was going to say also for on-prem, whenever we have customers on-prem, typically what they like to do is also have us on-site for integration and go live. That's something we're very comfortable with, and that's something that we've done multiple times in the past. So on-prem, absolutely. We can even be on-site to help make sure everything goes smoothly.